Thanks very much. That was fantastically interesting what you've been talking about. I wonder if I could draw you out a little bit more on the nation state. I think absolutely what you said was so true, that the nation state is not about territoriality fundamentally. It is an ideology. And Benedict Anderson's Imagined Communities is a very interesting way of seeing how it gets put together. I think you could also, one could also call it a rhetorical construction, a very powerful rhetorical construction of literate male elites historically. But you mentioned the Treaty of Westphalia. The nation state that emerged from the Treaty of Westphalia, which is a rhetorical construction, is not the same as the nation state that we usually think of as the modern nation state yet. It hadn't actually become the modern nation state. I would contend, because though there was a distinction between the ecclesiastical and civil authorities, they were still basically encompassed by Christian truth, either Protestant Christian truth or Catholic Christian truth. So there was no concept of the non-religious yet. And I think one of the features of the modern nation state, or a very dominant conception of the modern nation state, is the invention of the non-religious, the idea of the non-religious state, which also involves the privatization of religion. And I'm wondering about Savarkar, I'm wondering about what you were saying about Hindutva. Which of these two conceptions do they subscribe to? Is it a confessional state? Is it a state encompassed by a Hindu ideology? Or is it a state which makes space for this idea of the non-religious and which privatizes religion?
Well, that's easy to answer. So in Savarkar case, it is very clear. He wants to denude Hinduism also of all its ritual aspects, all its sacred elements, and use it as a kind of cultural frame. Absolutely clear. There is no doubt about it, not even the slightest doubt about it. In India, this is a much more problematic thing. Because if you want to make even the slightest dent in politics, Savarkar was a political failure. All his life he knew that. And he resented it very badly, that here he was, an enlightened writer, scholar, thinker, and a person was pleading for the Hindus, fighting for the Hindus, without any support base. And there was this upstart from Gujarat, Gandhi, with his stupid and irrational and unscientific, these are his words, attitude to life, who has all the allegiance of these superstitious and irrational Hindus, and contempt comes out. Hindu nationalism always has a contempt. It's very deep contempt against all Hindus. That's what I was trying to put it, because I put it for like it looked too sharp. But I can document it. If you read, I have read texts. Their texts are much sharper in their attack on Hindus than on Muslims and Christians, because Muslims and Christians are seen as communities who are capable of taking care of the communal interests, more in tune with modern nation state, more capable of sustaining a nation state, whereas these Hindus are totally anarchic with the 330 million gods and goddesses, their 20,000 varieties, 70,000 castes, and so on and so forth, 1,500 languages, whatever you want. This is seen as a great liability.
So he wants to marginalize all of that.
No, that's right. He wants to. All Hindu nationalists try to marginalize this, even when they're fighting for a Hindu cause. They're fighting for a Hindu cause. There is no doubt about it. Because the moment you enter into Hinduism, the faith, like the Christian right in the United States does, immediately you have lost 90% your support base. Not even 90, 95%, because your no, whichever way you formulate it, it goes against some Hindu community or other. So all of them had to avoid, like poison, any attempt to define Hinduism in a different way, or any other way. But all of them do feel more comfortable with some of the Hindu reform movements which talked against caste, which talked of unifying language for India, which talked of the Hindu classics, I should say sacred books of Hindu, Vedas and Upanishads mainly, because Gita, they are non-controversial. But nobody in India lives by those books. They live by texts which have a different kind of importance in everyday life. The Puranas, all kinds, starting from Ramayana and Mahabharata all the way up to Vishnu Purana and so on, whatever. And the Jati Puranas and so on and so forth. So that's actually for Hindus, that is the sacred text.
I think given us some way in which we can try and formulate the question that we raised yesterday, that you, especially the general formulation that you ended your talk with, that is, ideologies have a deep ambivalence towards their targets. If we take that and relate that to the proposition that we are supposed to examine here, that secularism and its opposite are in some sense the alter egos. And this is something that I think you have been arguing for very long. I mean, one of your famous formulation is that these are the bastard children of the West, in your history, and it's doubles.
The attempt to leave out Western history, in this part of the world.
So
these people are cussed enough not to do that. And they don't like that. I mean, that's another part of the story now.
The question is that emerged yesterday was, is there any way that we can begin to answer this question of how far these elements that go into both the registers, if you like, which are mirror images, have they in some sense penetrated, if you like, the consciousness, or they have remained purely ideology? Put it crudely. Because you seem to suggest somewhere that you don't see the kind of aggressiveness of the secularism now. Is that right? Or at least the question would be whether this is...
I've been hearing for the last 10 years, for example, the secret circular which the CPM has distributed, that don't attack religion directly. Very, very clear. So this is not accidental. This is, I think there is a recognition that this cannot go very far.
So it's a more general question then, is it possible, is there any way that you can tell us how one can go about answering this question, or what is your sense of it?
Of the mirroring thing, mirror image thing.
Whether this element that have gone into these two have actually spread to the, if you like, the consciousness of the...
that's the important part of the question, yes. The answer is very clear. I shall be very brief, so once again it will be crude. As long as you are talking of people outside the exposed sector, urban, educated, middle classes, and particularly people to some extent has gone to some element of social mobility, cut off from their traditional vocation. Hinduism is, when you talk of Hinduism, you actually mean a local faith with local gods and goddesses, family deities, with family priest, vernacular texts, and so on and so forth. It's a very localized thing. So you, Vivek Dareshar, if I uproot you and put you in Assam, then you will be lost. You will be out of touch if you are a believing Hindu. So the Hinduism you know. Not you, perhaps you are a too urban person, but some of our Hegudu crowd will be out of. And then they will have to, in place like Assam, because there are not that many Kannadigas there, you will have to fall back on a generic version of Hinduism where Vedas and Upanishads and Gita, etc. have a different kind of ring. You will have to pay like the non-resident Indians in the United States do in the morning on a hi-fi system, these bhajans and yoga and so on and so forth, go send your children to Sunday school. So that is the sector and clientele. So as India's middle class, urban Indian educated, modern educated sector increases, yes, they will become within purview of ideology. They will be in search for ideologies. Outside that India, it is still an open question.
Thank you.